Hey everybody, before this video starts, I just wanted to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. If you do subscribe because you like the content, definitely let me know in the comments that you subscribed, and I'll be sure to interact with your comment as soon as I can. Hey there everybody, this is Fleeting ASMR, back with another video for you guys today. I am going to be going over a book in a deep dive format today. If you're into reading, philosophy, ASMR, any of those things, you've definitely clicked on the right video. So today we're going to be going over The Courage to be Disliked, and this is by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. I have about 4 pages front and back of notes, so this might be a longer video, so let me know if you guys prefer these shorter, like 20-minute videos, or if you like this longer format. With this book, I felt like the principles discussed needed a lot of context and explanation to kind of understand where the author was coming from. So that's kind of why this is going to be a longer video. There's just a lot more information and ground to cover. So let's get started. Right off the bat, this book, about 20 to 30 pages in, had me really questioning a lot of things in my life in a good way. I felt very compelled after even those first 30 pages to scream from the rooftops that everybody should read this book. It's one of those. I am the kind of person that when I find something that really resonates with me and helps me, I want to spread it to the people in my life, or really anyone who will listen, anyone who needs it. This book is the epitome of that feeling. So this book is broken up into 5 separate nights where the young person is going to the home of the philosopher that lives on the outskirts of town to discuss really how to achieve true happiness, because the philosopher has told everyone in the surrounding area that anyone can choose to be happy no matter the circumstance, and the young person really has a bone to pick with this philosopher because of that claim. Each night that he goes there, he's plagued with more questions, but along the way he does find out many things about himself, unearths, the truths that maybe he didn't want to see previously about himself. So in the introduction, we're greeted with this dialogue between these two people, and you start to really see how cynical this young person is. He doesn't really like to take no for an answer, or rather, he pushes the issue on really so many things. Almost to the point where I thought that the philosopher was going to kick him out because he was so rude. But that's not what happens. It turns out that this young person is just really deeply unhappy in his life and doesn't believe that anybody has the power, not anybody, but doesn't believe that everyone has the power to be happy. Like this philosopher has that reputation for preaching around. He claims that after he talks to him for a bit, that the philosopher will actually retract that statement. And this young person has quite a bit of ego, and so he's really, pushing him on the issue, like I said. The philosopher seems ready to take on this challenge, and he tells him that if you see the world through dark glasses, naturally the world around you will be perceived as dark. But instead, you can choose to remove the glasses and see the world for, what it really is. And that action of removing the glasses takes courage. The young man asks why this would take courage to remove the glasses, and he expresses that he wishes he could redo his entire life, and that he's searching for the truth about life, and that's really why he's come to seek out the philosopher. So night one really starts out with the philosopher explaining Alderian psychology and what those principles are to the young person, because like I said, a lot of these principles are based in that practice, and it's not really considered a science, even though it's Adlerian psychology. Or I'm sorry, Adlerian. I always say Adlerian, and I mean Adlerian psychology. And Adlerian psychology is a new school of psychology established by the Austrian psychiatrist Alfred Adler, and he's one of the 4 people who worked under Sigmund Freud at one point, and his ideas did not mesh well with Freud's, and so he eventually did depart from that group and kind of started his own thing on the side. A lot of people use this Adlerian psychology, the people who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So it's definitely a widely used set of principles. The young man kind of goes over why he thinks that not everybody can be happy and lists things like trauma, abuse, for really being stuck. And the philosopher points out that, while a lot of people have these events happen to them, not everyone who has dealt with them has had the same outcome of being stuck. So in that way, that's proof that other people are able to overcome these hardships, and kind of like, well, why can't everyone? Everyone has the ability to do so. Obviously, there's different levels of abuse and trauma, and he's not trying to negate any of those things. These people that are stuck after these events, whether intentionally or not, they're creating a state of anxiety and giving them more or less an excuse to stay stuck. Basically, we make our own meaning out of trauma, and for better or for worse, it's ultimately up to us whether we can grow stronger out of events or if we can shrink underneath them. The young man really does not agree with this statement, and he uses an example from the previous day where he yelled at a waiter for spilling a drink on him in his new clothes, and how he just erupted into this state of rage, and he said things that he didn't even know he could say to somebody, and it wasn't even intentional. He says, the words just flew out of my mouth. And the philosopher says that, people fabricate anger as a way to express themselves. They create almost situations where they need to yell so that they're able to fulfill that need of expression. Because let's face it, he did not have to scream at this person who obviously was an accident. He could have been nicer to him, and you never know, the guy could have paid to have his shirt dry cleaned or something. You never know how other people are going to react. So the fact that he erupted in this fit of rage kind of set the tone. He really wanted someone to be submissive under him and to yell at them and tell them, what's going on, and it was, not a good way to deal with a situation like that. And it's because he felt that normal words and calmness felt like too much trouble, and that the tool that he used to feel relief was anger. And the philosopher really makes it clear that anger is a tool that can be taken out and put away as needed. He uses an example let's say you are upset at your daughter or your child, and you get a phone call, and anticipating that it's them, you pick it up and you're angry, and then you realize, oh, this is actually my doctor's office or something, and you completely change your tone once you realize who it is. In that way, that's proof that anger is a tool that we take out and put back when it suits our needs. The philosopher also states that people should not be controlled by emotions, and that we actually really aren't. And in that way, we're not controlled by the past. He says, people are not driven by past causes, but move towards goals that themselves set. And the young man doesn't really agree 100%, but definitely sees more of where the philosopher is coming from at this point with this specific subject. And he goes on to say that he wishes he was more like his friend. And the philosopher wants to, dissect that way of thinking. Why do you want to be more like this person? And after a little bit of back and forth, the young man reveals, like, well, I kind of hate myself. I am not happy being who I am, and that's why I want to change. And the philosopher reassures him that no one can be you. So move forward, put one foot in front of the other, and don't stop being you. And that's, in and of itself, a gift. To stop focusing on what you were born with and instead focus on what you can do with the equipment given. It's kind of like the grow where you're planted or bloom where you're planted or whatever that phrase is. And by principle, if you can choose happiness, then you can choose unhappiness and vice versa. And that choosing happiness takes the courage to be fully and authentically yourself with little to no regret with little to no regard for the opinions of others. Your life is determined here and now because the present moment is the only thing that exists. And I really am trying to live by the sentiment that you should live your life and not really care what other people think. That's something that I've been working on for a little bit, and I've definitely gotten better at it, but I think there's room for improvement everywhere. And if you're somebody who kind of lives your life for other people, definitely look for maybe possible reasons why you act that way or why you feel like you need to live your life for other people. And so we move on to night 2. So the young man comes back about a week later with the intention of really proving the philosopher wrong with everything that he had told him before. And the philosopher brings up the very important principle that all of life's problems are interpersonal relationship problems. And he definitely gives examples of that later on that I'll touch on if that's kind of a confusing concept. You're overly afraid of being disliked by other people and getting hurt in these relationships, which is why a lot of people isolate. I'm someone who definitely isolates, sometimes for positive reasons, and sometimes just because I don't feel like dealing with people. And that in and of itself is like me being tired of dealing with other people's BS, or maybe the expectations put on me when I am around other people. But unless you are all alone in the universe, you are going to have to deal with other people, and in little or big ways, you will hurt others and others will hurt you. It's just kind of the reality that we live in. You're not going to make everybody happy. Everyone is not going to make you happy, and why the happiness needs to come from within and not these external things. And he also makes a point that there is no internal worry, or a worry that really only includes yourself. Like, if you are worried about how others perceive you, that's an interpersonal relationship problem. Anything that you think is just internal always has roots to how others perceive you, or that you don't want to be judged by other people, or something along those lines. There's always a shadow of other people present in those worries. It's never just a you issue. And to continue that notion, you're only going to feel feelings of inferiority if you're comparing yourself to like a social norm or construct. For example, let's say I'm 5'1", and I know that the average male height is like 5'7" or 5'8", or whatever it is. In that way, I could feel inferior. But what's really the point of that? And he goes into saying that I'm only going to feel inferior if I place a value in that average height. Objective numbers don't necessarily have to have a negative subjective connotation or opinion. Like, just because that's the average, what does that really mean? Why are we equating value of human beings to a number like that? Same thing goes with weight. it's only going to make you feel inferior if you let it, if you give value to that thing. Because if there had been nothing to compare my height to, I wouldn't feel that way. And the exact quote that he gives about this is, "We cannot alter objective facts like numbers, but subjective interpretations can be altered as much as you like. Value is something based on social constructs and context. So you can always alter the way that you think about objectivity, like what I explained before." And feelings of inferiority are not always negative. A lot of the times they can be used for good. You can use those things to propel you forward, to set bigger and better goals for yourself, put yourself outside of your comfort zone, and really progress and evolve as a person. It's when you use them in a negative way to isolate yourself and to shrink yourself down that it becomes a problem. So just like really everything else, there is black and white, but there's also shades of gray. Instead of it feeling like a crushing force, it should feel like a launch pad into your next objective. And the philosopher also, says life is not a competition. Instead of seeing everything in like a vertical context, you should see everything at a horizontal context, with some people on this side, maybe you're over here, but really what does it matter when everybody has their own lives and goals? And he also says that we don't strive in order to compete with someone. We're just trying to progress past who you are right now. Like, I'm not going to compare myself to Joe Schmo down the street, but it is healthy to compare myself to me a year ago or 6 months ago or what have you. He also talks about power struggle a lot in this night, and about how once you decide that you are right in a conversation, then the other person is innately wrong, and it kind of becomes a contest. Like, I know I'm right about this, it could be something stupid. You kind of feel like this feeling of superiority over this person, and in that way, you start to view people as competitors in your life rather than like friends or comrades or people you share this earth with in a positive sense. You're gonna always look to win, like this competition that you've created in your head, and it does cloud your judgment, and it gives you that like me versus them mindset. We're almost done with night 2, so this one's a little bit of a longer one. He also mentions that there's 2 objectives to behavior. One is to be self-reliant, and the other one is to be in harmony with society. Like, those are things that we strive to achieve as human beings. So I have the ability to do something, and the people are my comrades mentality are important things to remind yourself of all the time, especially when you're struggling. Because all of these can be achieved through facing what are called your life tasks, and those are tasks of work, tasks of friendship, and tasks of love. And those are also considered like the 3 social ties. For the last part of this night, he goes into how we can make up flaws in other people so that we avoid the relationships with them. Like, if I don't like my boss, I will find many, many, many things to not like about him so that I don't have to interact with him on that level as much. And Adler called the state of coming up with all manner of pretexts in order to avoid life tasks as the life lie. And to close out the night, the philosopher says, you and no one else are the one who decide your lifestyle and how you live your life. So on to night 3. This one is a big one, and is talking about discarding other people's tasks. So 2 weeks later, the young man comes back in, and the philosopher asks him, what does freedom mean to him? And he brings up, money, and those kinds of things that maybe we automatically think about in this context of the world we live in right now. But the philosopher says freedom lies in relinquishing the need to seek recognition from others. Whether we like choose a certain school to go to make our parents happy, or for only cleaning up. Let's say you pick up litter from around your school, and people recognize you for it, and they give you, some sort of praise. If people stopped noticing, would you continue to do it? So it's really talking about like do good for good's sake, not to get that praise back from other people or that recognition. Because if we are only doing things to get praise, then we are not living our lives for ourselves, we're living it for other people. And I do have a quote written from this night that says, "Wishing so hard to be recognized will lead to a life of following expectations held by other people who want you to be this kind of person." So it kind of goes hand in hand with what I said a few seconds ago, that you're kind of like throwing away who you really are and living someone else's life, which is pretty sad. And a lot of us do it because we were brought up to be people pleasers and to seek praise. So into the separation of tasks, what this means is you're asking, whose task is this with anything? I put my dishes away, my wife doesn't, that's her task to do. But if like I'm fine with doing it, I'm fine with doing it. There's like different layers to that, obviously, but really you should act according to whose task it is. And in general, all interpersonal relationship troubles are caused by intruding on other people's tasks or other people intruding on your own. And the way that you decipher who is going to be, or whose task that is you ask who ultimately is going to receive the result brought about by the choice that is made. And that you can give assistance, but wait for someone to ask you instead of intruding on what is their task. If you are not disregarding other people's tasks, over time it's going to cause you a lot of anxiety, worry, and suffering, which all stems from those interpersonal relationships. And all you can do is choose the best path that you believe in, because the judgment that other people have in reference to your tasks, like how you live your life, is really on them. That's their task. And so that goes hand in hand with the not worrying what others think of you. That goes with like your physical appearance too, to a certain extent. Like obviously there are social norms like being hygienic and everything like that, and like abiding by the law. But other than that, like do what you want to do, look how you want to look. Because at the end of the day, how they feel about you is their own task to bear. And because you don't want to intrude on other people's tasks, you should not worry at all about how other people perceive you. And if no one dislikes you, then you are living your life completely for other people, because a good gauge of if you are living authentically is if someone somewhere doesn't like you, because you're not feeding into what they want. And in that way of living life the way that you want to live it, that is truly what freedom is. And that's kind of the whole point of this night between this philosopher and this young person, is freedom is being disliked by others. Freedom is living your life authentically in the way that you want to live it, with no regard of how other people are going to perceive you. And that doesn't mean like you're actively acting out of spite to make people not like you, but it's like you're living your own life and you don't care whether people like you or not. And that's the end of night 3. Night 4 is all about the goal of interpersonal relationships is really that community feeling. We want to feel like we're contributing something to a community, and we want to view other people as our friends or our comrades, rather than that competition or that competitor, like I explained before. And if all problems are interpersonal relationship problems, and therefore the source of unhappiness, then the opposite is also true. Interpersonal relationships are the source of happiness. It's important to view yourself as not the center of the world or the universe, and really recognize yourself as a piece of the whole community. And community can be 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. It doesn't really matter. Community is definitely interchangeable in how many people you're talking about. But I think in this context, he kind of means like a city or like a village setting. He talks about building equal horizontal relationships with other people. Like, you act like you're on equal footing. There's no sense of superiority over another person. He also says that we feel a sense of worth when we are able to feel like we're contributing to a community or that we are of use to someone, and that we all have worth just by being here on this earth. Because even if we don't know it, we are contributing to someone somewhere with something. For a parent, you're contributing to their life by being alive and being you. So in that way, you are of use to them. And I don't mean of use in the way of like you need to do manual labor or like anything like that. But just, there's many different ways to be of use to someone, whether it be love, care, etc. Sorry if the camera angle has changed slightly. My neighbors started to mow their lawn, so I had to quit recording for a little bit. So let's get into night 5. So night 5, about a month later, the young man comes back in, and this whole section is about being present and being earnest in the now. And it talks about how happiness comes from self-acceptance rather than self-affirmation. And a good example of that is, let's say you get a 60% on your test. Self-affirmation would be, I just got unlucky. The real me is at 100% right now. Next time, whatever. But the self-acceptance response would be, okay, I got a 60 on this. How do I go about getting closer to 100? What do I need to work on? Which I think is pretty good. It kind of keeps you always moving towards that positive progression as a human being. And it talks about how trust is key in all interpersonal relationships, and to not worry so much that other people are going to take advantage of you, because again, that's their task to worry about. And he's not saying, put yourself in positions where you're going to be more likely to be taken advantage of, but he's really saying, quit with the anxiety, the over worry. Things will happen the way they're going to happen, and you only need to put in so much preparedness and worry before it starts to become negative. Because seeding doubt in your mind about somebody for long periods of time will inevitably cause the relationship to fall apart. If you think that your partner is cheating on you, and you really truly think that, you will find reasons and things to affirm you on that point, like evidence for that, even if they're not doing anything. He also says that people can change regardless of their age, and that's something that I have been preaching for a little bit too, when I talk about people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, what have you, that are really opposed to change. I personally just see it as an excuse. You get so comfortable in what you know that you're not willing to look at another side or ways to improve or etc. And I think that that really is doing yourself a disservice, because when you don't want to change, or you don't change, intentionally, it's because you're lacking courage to do so. And going back to contributions, you don't get to be the one to say, oh, I am contributing, or it's not always a tangible contribution. All we need is that subjective sense that I am of use to someone somewhere. And all of these things add up to the idea of being normal, and the only reason that you'd really want to be special is because you can't accept yourself as being normal, and you desire recognition. You desire that superior feeling above other people, and we need to remember that being normal is normal, and being normal doesn't mean that you're incapable. There's like a negative connotation to being normal, and it really, there shouldn't be one. And one of the last big points that the philosopher makes is to enjoy the journey through life rather than the destination, which we've heard before. Life is about the journey, not the destination. To not treat life as a line that you're trying to go up like a mountain. Think of it as like a series of dots or a series of moments, because it is enough if you find fulfillment and happiness in the here and now. So instead of treating life like a journey where the destination is the top of the mountain, and if you don't reach that in a certain amount of time, you're hard on yourself. Don't treat the top of the mountain as the destination. You can still view life as a mountain, but view your life and the journey as a series of going up and going around, and that's what he kind of means by series of dots rather than like a linear process. So you're not regarding the top at all in that scenario. And the last point that he makes is to cast away the life lie and fearlessly shine a bright spotlight on the here and now. And whatever meaning that life has must be assigned to it by that specific person. So there is no one answer to what is the meaning of life. Everybody assigns that to their own life and their own being. And with these principles, you should start putting these into action as soon as you can, and without regard for if others are going to be cooperative. Because let's face it, these are kind of different ways of thinking and living, and not everyone is going to be on board. Like I said, people don't like change, and so people view change sometimes as you holding a mirror up to them, and that can make people uncomfortable. So you should live your life the way that you want, when you want, and not worry about what others think or whether people are going to jive with your new way of living, or whatever the scenario is. And that is the end of my notes that I have for this book. I did start reading the next book, which is The Courage to Be Happy. I have not finished it yet, but I plan on finishing it soon and doing another video like this, like a deep dive. So if you guys want to see that, definitely let me know. And if you guys liked this kind of video, definitely let me know in the comments or by liking and subscribing. And if you do subscribe, definitely let me know in the comments and I'll interact with your comment. You can just say I subscribed. We are at 85 subscribers right now, which is amazing. And we're almost to that goal of 100. So definitely subscribe if you like the content, and put any video requests down in the comments. And like I said in the previous video, my schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at approximately 5 p.m. EST. There is a hurricane headed towards us right now, so if for some reason I don't post on Wednesday this week, that's why. I can't make a community post because I don't have enough subscribers yet, so this is kind of me letting you guys know that it's not because I've stopped posting, it's just because I don't have electricity or don't have Wi-Fi or what have you. So again, thank you guys so much for interacting with the video and getting me to 85 subscribers already. I really love the conversations that we have in the comments, so definitely keep it up, and I hope you guys are staying safe and have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.